Welcome back to Bayside Stories. Today's book is the fourth book in the Mystery of Talara. The other books, of course, did have swear words, but today I would like to give a content warning because it's a little bit more than just swear words. The book does not state these things exactly, but it definitely hints at things. So if you have a younger audience, things like that, I suggest you don't listen to this book around them. It's only a paragraph or two. I will have a warning on screen before it happens, but this is a warning now, so be prepared for that. If you're squeamish in the area of, say, sexual violence, then obviously you're going to want to skip the part. I will have timestamps for you, so don't worry. You won't have to see anything, or hear anything, rather. And if for some reason some of my family members are listening or watching this, please don't. It's quite embarrassing enough already uploading it to YouTube. Anyway, with that disclaimer done, I will tell you where to find the books. The book can be found in Nepo's house in Markarth, in Stony Creek Cave on a table to the right of the Alchemist Lab, in Blind Cliff Cave in the room where you fight Petra, and in Hag's End. It will be on a table in the room with the throne with a hidden door behind it. Sorry for the longer intro, I just wanted to make sure no one had to hear anything they weren't okay with hearing, and of course, it's not really suitable for children, this one. But I hope you enjoy. Mystery of Talara Part 4. Gaina never saw the Emperor's agent Lady Briziana again, but she kept her promise. Prosekos, a Nightblade in the service of the Emperor, arrived at Lord Strahl's house in disguise. She was an apt pupil, and within days he had taught what she needed to know. It's a simple charm, not the sort of spell that could turn a raging Deadroth into a love-struck puppy, said Prosekos. If you do or say anything that would normally anger or offend your target, the power will weaken. It will alter temporarily his perception of you, as spells of the School of Illusion do. But his feelings of respect and admiration for you must be supported by means of a charm of a less magical nature. I understand, smiled Gaina, thanking her tutor for the 2 spells of illusion he had taught her. The time had come to use her newfound skills. The Prostitute Guild Hall of Camlorn was a great palace in an affluent northern quarter of the city. Prince Cylon could often find his way there blindfolded, or blind drunk as he often was. Tonight, however, he was only lightly inebriated, and he resolved to drink no more. Tonight, he was in the mood for pleasure, his kind of pleasure. "Where is my favorite, Grigia?" he demanded of the guildmaster upon entering. "She's still healing from your appointment with her last week," she smiled sincerely. "Most of the other women are in with their clients as well, but I saved a special treat for you, a new girl, one you will certainly enjoy." The prince was guided to a sumptuously decorated suite of velvet and silk. As he entered, Gaina stepped from behind a screen and cast her spell quickly. With her mind open to belief, as Prosekos had instructed, it was hard to tell if it worked at first. The prince looked at her with a cruel smile, and then, like sun breaking through clouds, the cruelty left. She could tell he was hers. He asked her name. "I am between names right now," she teased. "I never made love to a real prince before. I've never even been inside a palace. Is yours very big?" "It's not mine yet," he shrugged, "but someday I'll be king." "It'd be wonderful to live in such a place," Gaina cooed. "1,000 years of history, everything must be so old and beautiful. The paintings and books and statues and tapestries. Does your family hold on to all their old treasures?" "Yes, hoarded away with a lot of boring old junk in the archive rooms and the vaults. Please, may I see you naked now? First a little conversation. Though you may feel free to disrobe whenever you like," said Gaina. "I had heard there was an archive room, but it's quite hidden away." "There's a false wall behind the family crypt," said the prince, gripping her wrists and pulling her towards him for a kiss. Something in his eyes had changed. "Your Highness, you're hurting my arm," Gaina cried. "Enough talk, you bewitching whore," he snarled. Holding back a sharp jab of fear, Gaina let her mind cool and perception whirl. As his angry mouth touched her lips, she cast the second spell she had learned, her illusionist mentor. The prince felt his flesh turn to stone. He remained frozen, watching Gaina pull together her clothing and leave the room. The paralysis would only last for a few more minutes, but it was all the time she needed. The guildmistress had already left with all her girls, just as Gaina and Lord Strahl had told her to. They would tell her when it was safe to return. She had not even accepted any gold for her part in the trap. She said it was enough that her girls would no longer be tortured anymore by the most perverse and cruel prince. What a terrible boy, thought Gyna, as she raised the hood on her cloak and raced through the streets towards Lord Strahl's house. It is good that he will never be king. The following morning, the king and queen of Camlorn held their daily audience with various nobles and diplomats, a sparse gathering. The throne room was largely empty. It was a terribly dull way to begin the day. In between petitions, they yawned regularly. What has happened to all the interesting people? The queen murmured. Where is our precious boy? I've heard he was raging through the north quarter in search of some harlot who robbed him. The king chuckled fondly. What a fine lad. And what of the royal battle mage? I've sent him to take care of a delicate matter. The king knit his brow. But that was nearly a week ago, and I haven't heard one word from him. It's somewhat troubling. Indeed it is. Lord Errol should not be gone so long, the queen frowned. What if a rogue sorcerer came and threatened us? Husband, don't laugh at me. This is why all the royal families of High Rock keep their mage retainers close to their side, to protect their court from evil enchantments, like the one that our poor emperor suffers so recently. At the hand of his own battle mage, chuckled the king. Lord Errol would never betray you like that, and you well know it. He has been in your employ since you were Duke of Ulwan. To even make the comparison between he and Jaeger Tharn, really, the queen waved her hand dismissively. It is that sort of lack of trust that is ruining kingdoms all over Tamriel. Now Lord Strahl tells me. There's another man that's gone missing, mused the king. The ambassador? The queen shook her head. No, he's here. He was desirous to visit the crypt and pay homage to your noble ancestors, so I directed him there. I can't think what's keeping him so long. You must be more pious than I thought. She was surprised to see the king rise up, alarmed. Why didn't you tell me? Before she had a chance to reply, the subject of their conversation was coming through the open door to the throne room. On his arm was a beautiful, fair-haired woman in a stately gown of scarlet and gold, worthy of the highest nobility. The queen followed her startled husband's gaze and was likewise amazed. I had heard he was taken with one of the harlots from the flower festival, not a lady, she whispered. Why, she looks remarkably like your daughter, the Lady Gilia. That she does, the king gasped. Or her cousin, the Princess Talara. The nobles in the room also whispered amongst themselves, though few had been at court 20 years ago when the princess had disappeared, presumed murdered like the rest of her royal family. There were still a few elder statesmen who remembered. It was not only on throne that the word Talara passed through the air like an enchantment. Lord Strahl, will you introduce us to your lady? The queen asked with a polite smile. In a moment, your highness, but I'm afraid I must first discuss pressing matters. Lord Strahl replied with a bow. Might I request a private audience? The king looked at the imperial ambassador, trying to read into the man's expression. With a wave of his hand, he dismissed the assembled and had the door shut behind them. No one remained in the audience room but the king, the queen, the ambassador, a dozen royal guards, and the mysterious woman. The ambassador pulled from his pocket a sheaf of old yellow parchment. Your Highness, when you ascended to the throne after your brother and his family were murdered, anything that seemed important, deeds and wills, were of course kept with the clerks and ministers. His entire incidental, unimportant personal correspondence was sent to the archive, which is standard protocol. This letter was among them. What is this about, sir? The king boomed. What does it say? Nothing about you, your majesty. In truth, at the time of your majesty's ascension, no one reading it could have understood its significance. It was a letter to the emperor, the late king, your brother, was pinning at the time of his assassination, concerning a thief who had once been a mage priest at the temple of Sithit here in Camlorn. His name was Jaeger Tharn. Jaeger Tharn? The queen laughed nervously. Why, we were just talking about him. Tharn had stolen many books of powerful and forgotten spells, and lore about such artifacts as the Staff of Chaos, where it was hidden and how it could be used. News traveled slow to westernmost High Rock, and by the time the king, your brother, had heard that the emperor's new battle mage was a man named Jaeger Tharn, many years had passed. The king had been writing a letter to warn the emperor of the treachery of his imperial battle mage, but it was never completed. Lord Strahl held up the letter. It is dated on the day of the assassination, in the year 385. 4 years before Jagertharn betrayed his master, and began the 10 years of tyranny of the imperial simulacrum. This is all very interesting, the king barked, but what does it have to do with me? The late king's assassination is now a matter of imperial concern, and I have a confession from your royal battle mage, Lord Errol. The king's face lost all color. You miserable worm, no man may threaten me. Neither you, nor that whore, nor that letter will ever see the light of day again. Guards! The royal guards unsheathed their blades and pressed forward. As they did so, there was a sudden shimmering of light, and the room was filled with imperial nightblades, led by Prosecco's. They had been there for hours, lurking invisibly in the shadows. In the name of His Imperial Majesty, Uriel Septim VII, I arrest you, said Strahl. The doors were open. The king and queen were led out, heads bowed. Guyana told Prosecco's where he would most likely find their son, Prince Cylon. The courtiers and nobles who had been in the audience chamber stared at the strange, solemn procession of their king and queen to their own royal prison. No one said a word. When at last a voice was heard, it startled all. The Lady Gilia had arrived at court. What happened? Who dare usurp the authority of the king and queen? Lord Strahl turned to Prosecco's. We would speak with Lady Gilia alone. You know what needs to be done. Prosecco's nodded and had the doors to the throne room closed once again. The courtiers pressed against the wood, straining to hear everything. Though they could not say it, they wanted an explanation almost as much as her ladyship did.